Welcome to Building Healthy Relationships, the 4 Habits podcast, helping you enjoy better harmony at home, thrive at work, and win at life. Here are your hosts, Dr. Andrea and Jon Taylor-Cummings, recognized authorities on the subjects of improving work relationships and cultures, as well as couple and home relationships.
Well, hello, good morning, good afternoon, good evening. Welcome to our audience, whatever time zone that you are listening in on or catching up on the podcast. Delighted to have you here. And we're really looking forward to the conversation today. We say that with all our guests because we have such great guests. But today we have the joy of being in conversation with Kevin White, and we're going to be delving into interesting topics around being healed from the inside out so we can tap into our intuition and be more authentic and grounded as leaders. So Kevin, welcome and thank you for making time for us today.
Yeah, thank you very much. I've been looking at what you guys are doing and the fact you've been doing it for over 2 decades, and I just thank you as well. Thank you for what you've done for our world and for all the relationships you've been helping in. Appreciate it.
Awesome. Wonderful. Thank you for that. And as our audience knows, we like to give you due recognition. So John's going to share a little bit of the bio before we kick off into the conversation.
As always, great. So let me do that. So Kevin White is the co-founder of Believe Crew, an organization dedicated to empowering individuals and leaders to maximize their impact through personal growth. After a rapid ascent in the tech industry, Kevin recognized that he was not reaching his full leadership potential. So feeling a divine call to embrace greater leadership roles, he embarked on a journey to dismantle limiting beliefs, freeing himself from shame and guilt. Inspired by those who supported him, Kevin embraced his gifts as a healer and coach, dedicating himself to guiding others on their paths to authenticity. Through Believe Crew, he provides a safe and supportive environment for leaders to connect with their intuition and unlock their full potential. That's what it's all about.
And
unlocking your potential, man.
Awesome. And there's some really weighty words in there, limiting beliefs, shame and guilt that can trap so many of us in being the best version of ourselves. Give us a little bit of the backstory, Kevin, that got you to this point, as much as you're willing to share. Safe space here. And and then we can go into some of those themes and how we can each just be more intentional, tune more into our intuition and unlock the potential inside of us.
Yeah, so if I go back to the beginning of the story, and it's hard, right? Like there's so many beginnings, but let's start with, us, my wife and I being young, early marriage, having a couple kids, and we went through a year where we had both of our moms pass away, and
wow.
So they both passed away from cancer, but Jamie's mom really is where a lot of the story focuses. Her mom was one of those women that just was so dynamic, so beautiful, so accomplished, and her dad had created, many, I don't even know how big, but let's say several millions, 10, 20 million, somewhere in there. And in their businesses, they were just a great couple. They had a relationship that was inspiring to watch. And yet, through the process of her 6-year fight with cancer, we got to see the inside story of what really had happened. And in the last few months, especially, she shared, for example, she gave Jamie a book near the end of the battle and said, if this book is right, everything I've done is wrong. And
wow.
She had gone all over the world. She had gone to Ireland and Mexico and I don't even remember all the other places, Southeast Asia, etc., looking for the right health-based, nutrition-based solutions. And what this book said is that we have to start with our mind. And she said, and she really, you could tell, had an inkling that was the real issue. She knew that the challenge she was really having was based on forgiveness, and there had been an issue in their marriage that was very hard for her to get over. and she knew that she needed help, but yet she was so afraid of like, why can't I do it? And so in the like the good news in the story is that at the end she was able to forgive, and but it was too far into the battle, right? And
Yeah.
so
Yeah.
we look at her as a beautiful story overall, and we're thankful for what she started in our lives, and just like, as you think about us as a young couple, maybe 3 years into our marriage, 3-4 years, and what that does for you, right? Like the gift that type of experience gives
Absolutely.
you, you suddenly start to think about, okay, so if I'm going to, what does success look like for me? And if I'm going to get there, um, and have everything she did and still be unhappy, like, what are my priorities?
Mm-hmm.
And you know, it took me a while to get caught up to what we were learning. I was a little slow on the uptake, but Jamie, somewhere a few years after that, started to realize that if she didn't start doing her own personal work, that she was going to uh, have the same trajectory as her mom.
Mm-hmm.
So she was first. She got a coach. She started doing a lot of mind-based things, and then she started to, I guess, push my boundaries and say, hey, there's
Catch
some
up.
things in your life. Yes, exactly. That there's some things in your life that I'm not going to be accepting of anymore. And you know, I was an addict, and uh, I had, and I was still living in the way where I thought I just need to hustle, I need to work hard, I need to learn and succeed, and then I'll be fine, right? But I wasn't really connecting with my kids, and I certainly wasn't connecting with my wife. So um, that's where coaching found us, and the mentors that then changed my life, and eventually helped us to get to that point where we said, okay, we want to do this full time and start a business doing this.
Wow.
Do you know, I was going to say, just there, you've touched on so many important themes for leaders that it's so easy to get caught up in being successful by the pound or dollar sign definition, but not really living a whole or wholesome
Yes.
life. And the need for us to go to work on ourselves in order to address those. You talk about the mind, I'm guessing you mean those limiting beliefs, those narratives that we tell ourselves about ourselves that
Yes.
prevent us from achieving our potential, and the importance of having coaches. So,
Yeah.
in one fell swoop, you kind of ticked all those boxes.
Yeah, no, I love the way that you're coming at this not from a theoretical academic perspective. You're coming from, this is a life experience. This is what happened to us. This
Yes.
is what we saw.
Yeah.
This is what we felt. This is we saw people on this painful journey, and we had some revelations. So help us understand. So when you get to that point and you have these thoughts, these mindsets that you recognize need to be changed, what do you do then? How do you go about doing that?
So, yeah, so the thing that I start with everyone now is like learning to love myself, right? Learning to love ourselves first. I think that was the thing that really, that's the thing that's behind, well, there's two things behind addiction. One is usually there's trauma, right? There's something that's happened that in the backstory that causes you to want to cope with things that are not giving you anything, right?
Mhm.
And secondly, I think the other thing around behind addiction is really not knowing how to love ourselves, not knowing how to connect with ourselves, and and of course that's going to also affect our relationships. And so, yeah, that's where I start. And I think that's maybe sometimes the hardest thing to do, to keep going deep, and like, if I can't connect with myself, if I can't really understand what's going on inside of me, how am I going to really be there for someone else? And yeah, my passion today is like, I know there's a lot of men out there that are wanting more, but I want to be myself, pushing myself into that realm of personal growth, and welcoming and pursuing and helping all the men out there I've worked with a lot of women. I think that women have been in this space for a long time, and we got to catch up.
Yeah.
You know, so
But I want to know, what did you do? So I get that you're
okay.
coaching people now, helping them. But did you just look in a mirror and go, look, I love you, man, I love you? How do you actually love yourself? What's the journey
No,
to that?
I mean, I look back and there's so many people that believed in me before I did,
Mm.
before I believed in myself. And like, I go back to a high school teacher that gave, recommended me for my first job. And what did he see in me, and that he helped me get a scholarship. He helped me get into college to the right fit, right? Like I was going to go down the path of a 4-year school and be a whatever I thought I needed to do, but he saw something in me and really got me linked up with the right path for me. And so I think he saw some leadership stuff that I didn't see. And I had a mentor in my first job out of college that he was he was one of the best leaders I ever worked with, and he saw leadership inside of me, right? Like, and he ended up getting the job at the company I was working at, and then he also ended up getting a job at like a bigger business. So the bigger business was just slower at hiring him. So as he transitioned to that other bigger position, he put me in charge of a lot of the business he was leaving. And I was like 23 and
Wow.
ill prepared for it. So yeah, so they saw some things, and mostly I would say that I didn't see it, and I would say I failed in a lot of ways, but I learned something, right? And so if we fast forward to 10 years ago or so, a little less than 10 years ago, Jamie had a business coach that she was working with, and she said to me, I think you should talk to this guy about some of the things you're struggling with. And I started talking to him, and he became my coach for the next 5 years. And we worked on, basically love versus fear. Like, how much is fear controlling my life? How much is love controlling my life? And that's what we spent the next 5 years doing. And it was good foundation for me.
Mm-hmm.
And I'd love to pick up on that point. I heard something recently, or sorry to the lady who did this video. I can't remember her name, but she said there's a big difference between self-love and self-worship. Self-worship is where you say, this is who I am and you just need to deal with me because this is just how I'm wired.
Yeah.
Where self-love is loving yourself enough to recognize what you're great at, but also be honest about the things that you need to go on this journey for, because the things that aren't quite right in you will show up in
Yes.
how you show up to relationships. Do you have any examples of where something that needed healing or something that was broken or not right on the inside really impacted relationships, either with clients that you've seen or with yourself? Just how not dealing with these limiting beliefs and narratives on the inside can cause you to show up in an unhealthy way in relationships.
Yeah. So, boy, there's so many things. I think, I grew up in the Midwest. I love my family. I honor them. I appreciate everything they gave me. And I recognize that so much of our life was about survival. And and that's probably many of our ancestors, like that was a real thing for them, right?
Indeed, yeah.
Yet I feel like we weren't working so much on what our potential was, right? And so when we're just surviving, we can get caught up in that victim mindset. And I mean, I've had this a lot. I mean, there's a conversation Jamie and I have been having in the last day where I see some victim mindset stuff, right? Like, it's still there. And the fact that it's still there means that I'm still operating as a victim, which is really annoying to me. But yeah, like, that's part of like digging in, right? And just continually doing the work. Like, okay, so yes, I can see why I thought that and why I am, um, from a business standpoint in this particular situation, how I'm looking at I'm the victim here, right?
Hmm. How
And
does that
so
show up? What do you mean when you say you're the victim? Just so it's very plain to our audience, what's a victim
so
mindset?
so you guys would understand. So having a business where you're working together, you're a couple, right?
Hmm.
Okay, so I didn't want to assume that, but basically, there's
You're
some
safe.
interesting things that come in to especially when we're in this space of working on uh, health and wellness, relationships, and all that.
Hmm.
So then it gets a little more complicated because you have a relationship, your life and business partners, and and you have a really good knowledge of where both of your issues are, right?
Yeah.
So I was tempted in a moment when I should have been strong, where I should have been the banks of the river. I was yeah, I spoke up about her issues with sales, and instead of I became the victim right there.
Mm.
I don't want to get into it too much more than that, but like
Yeah.
it just becomes apparent, like, okay, that's in my heart, and I guess I need to deal with it, right?
So
So
so you mean it's about basically blaming the other person for where you
yeah,
find yourself?
yeah,
Got you. Got
yeah.
you.
You got us here because of this issue, right? And that's not true, actually. It's just there are some challenges sometimes that do participate in the end result, but if we're using the right mindset, we look at it as an opportunity instead of
Yeah.
you know,
Yeah, but I just wanted to unpack that for clarity. So you're talking about, as you say, blaming the other person, and also maybe a scarcity mindset where the only way you
yes,
see things is in how do we cut costs rather than the growth, etc., etc. Got
yeah,
got
scarcity.
got that.
That's a good example. Scarcity is huge, right? Like survival mode, fight and flight, right? Like we we're not tapping into what the opportunity is.
Yeah,
Yeah,
and then it impacts the way you turn up to the
and
relationship.
we've seen that so many times in our own relationship and in other relationships we've spoken to, worked with, where when you are uh, in a situation where you feel you've got to go into survival mode.
Yeah, and you take it out on each other.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Take it out on each
Yes.
other.
Speak
The whole
honestly
thing.
now, John.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Yes.
Everything can become a problem very, very quickly.
Yeah.
Because, there
Yes.
are other things weighing you down.
And this is
Yeah.
real grown up stuff where you have to start taking responsibility for the issues in your life, in your mind, in your narrative, how that's impacting the way you show up, take ownership of that. Otherwise, you'll never change, right? So,
Correct.
so,
Yeah.
so tell us, can you share with us some of the work that you do with people? Is it with individuals? Is it with couples? What's the journey that you take them on to get to this place of authenticity and intuition and healing?
Well, the thing that we've started with that's I think made it a huge impact what with us and with the people we work with is just like getting some understanding of what our spiritual gifts are.
Hmm.
Like I do have the spiritual gift of leadership, and then we have the reality of life and how we show up as a human,
Mhm.
and we have to be something too. We can't just be gifted. We have to choose to be something. To
Hmm.
be to choose what is it I want to be and how do I want to show up every day. So for me, I am uh, an inspiring leader and healer. I help people with their own journey and like stepping into the deep junk sometimes that's behind the scenes, reorganize that, add some peace to their life. And then also, I'm a leader here in our family, and am I being that, right?
Mm.
But it does help, in my opinion, to have like some understanding that we're showing up with a set of gifts, right? And so that has given the people we work with a lot of insight into like, who am I? Like, more than just like my degree and all that. Like, who am I?
Hmm.
What are my gifts? So how do we do that? We use a system called human design.
Mhm.
Also another system called gene keys. Those are both systems that are not personality profiles per se. I mean, I love DISC, and um, we use a bunch of other ones,
Mhm.
but like, those personality profiles are kind of like capturing who you think you are. And human design and gene keys are more focused on like, how did you show up in the world and who are you? Like, what was it's a more of an Eastern approach of like
Mhm. Mhm.
astrology, etc., where this is the way the universe was when you came into it, and this is some of the attributes you received. Um, and they seem to be amazingly accurate, which helps us get insight into, okay, this is who you are, and these are some of the gifts you're bringing to the table here in your life.
I love the idea of starting with the gifts that you're bringing, because usually when we think of coaching, it kind of has a bad rap, doesn't it? That you're doing coaching because there's something that needs to be fixed. But
Hmm.
to focus on the fact that you already have these gifts, how can we help you unlock your full potential and deal with the stuff that's holding you back from showing up and shining in your space? I love that. I
Yes.
love that approach.
I was gonna say there's another guy we've been talking with who I think we have due to be coming on the show as well. Who was talking about your energies and superpowers that you have. So again,
Hmm.
this is moving. It's you can always find links and connect things back to personality profiles and so on. But as you're saying, this is more. It's a slightly different lens on this.
Mhm.
Um, is there more that you're able to share with us about human design in terms of what are some of these superpowers? Let's call them for a moment.
Yeah. So let's go back to my own story. So the journey was, I started with a coach, and I had another mentor who was an energy healer who had a Christian background similar to mine,
Mm-hmm.
and he was just, both of these guys were in their 60s, so it helped me to like.
So you mean really old people?
I will. John's provoking me now because my
well,
significant birthday's coming up. That's why he said
well,
that.
well, that's great, because that's like, yeah, it's
That's
like
a
the
blessing
new,
to get there.
yeah. Well, happy birthday ahead of time.
Thank you.
Um, but I mean, like, they gave me a lot of wisdom, right? Like, they had been through a lot, um, and I just really appreciated the two of those things together, and that became, it was like exactly what I needed to see who I could be. And that's
Mm.
really how I show up for people now. But like, going back to the whole healing part of it, like, coaching exposed what was possible, and definitely how fear-based I was, and then gave me um, a, accountability to see how I could be more love-based, starting with myself and
Mm-hmm.
with everyone around me. And but then there were still issues, that these repetitive patterns that happened, right? And so that's where some of the in my own discovery, I started to understand my first two gifts are, I forget the word that we use, but it's like encouragement and inspiration, and then my second one is healing. And I didn't have a clue what that meant, right? Like, what is healing? Like, other cultures, I think, have a better understanding of that than at least us in the USA. Um, and so, definitely since I've come to Mexico, I've understood they have a pretty good understanding down here.
Okay.
Um, yet, so how did I started working with some healers, and uh, there's one healing methodology that I use in that helped me see what the possibility was. It's called theta healing, and it's really this concept of going to the creator, to God, to unconditional love, and bypassing all the other things that might hold us back, and like just receiving downloads of what is truth, which can
Mm-hmm.
be a very powerful thing. And then it's the concept of then applying love to the trauma that happened in the past, finding the limiting belief that is there, that's in our subconscious, that's related to that trauma, choosing to release that belief, and then starting fresh with the blueprint that we kind of had at the beginning, just saying, oh, we can let that go and we can operate like we were always intended to. So that was the beginning of, well, also, I guess one of the thing was I did do some hypnotherapy as well, which helped me as to get unstuck, to really confront some of the anxieties that were deeper. So that was a very powerful part of it as well. And I do not do hypnotherapy. I leave that to the experts.
Yeah. And it's interesting because sometimes, you know, in this very kind of materialistic culture, cancel culture world that we live in, talking about inner healing can sound very woo and out there.
Yes.
Yet we know that, especially when you've had trauma or difficulties in your past, that they haunt you and hold you back until you find that safe space where you can confront them and be healed on the inside so that you turn up better in the outside world. And it's the courage to go there and having safe hands, really, to not just poke at it, provoke it, and open up the wound, but to help people really find healing and come out whole, come out healed from the experience. So, great work if when you can help people on that journey and see them come out the other side.
I have a question. I have a thought. It's certainly great work, and getting it right is not an easy thing. But there is a risk, I think, that in this space you can kind of veer into danger territory, because the spiritual world is a big old world out there, and lots of people have different takes on it. In the work that you've done, in the I guess the coaches you've worked with, etc. Coming at things from a Christian perspective, coming from that angle of faith, have you come across what am I looking for? Maybe dark forces out there, or some forces or pulls that you just thought, whoa, what's going on here? I need to watch out here. It's just when you're in territory, things can go. I don't know what kind of experience you've had in that space.
Yeah, or how do you protect yourself from dabbling in dangerous stuff?
Yeah, this is an awesome question. And I think that we're really afraid. I mean, I certainly was, and of what of spirituality and spiritual healing, all that kind of stuff, right? I guess the truth is, I can get into some details if you want to, but the truth is that it's kind of like I had a prayer with God before we got into this because of how afraid I was, where I was like, I know there's something here for me. You know the path. Make sure I get out the other side. Okay, please.
There you go.
Right? And so what I learned in the journey is that fear is debilitating in all forms. If we're afraid of a spiritual investigation, we're holding ourselves back and we're stuck from it. The truth is that when you go into this realm, any realm that we don't know, there's going to be some mistakes that we're going to make. But we are our real fear behind that is that I'm going to come out lost, right? And so I think we need to just acknowledge that and then be willing to we make some commitments. Like, I'm going to be always committed to love and the pursuit of love and to God, right? As a Christian, to believing. I had a friend recently who reached out to me and said, I don't hear enough about Jesus from you. I understand. I mean, at the same time, yes, when I think about my relationship with Jesus, it's much closer. I have conversations with him now versus before. I didn't. I just thought he was there and helping me, but now I talk to him, right? Like,
Right.
and so that has come from being willing to go into this unknown zone and just ask questions. And in my journey of looking through this, I've come to understand that like a more Eastern approach to everything, especially religion, the Bible, etc., is actually just to ask questions.
Mm-hmm.
And as long as we're willing to ask questions, and as long as we're willing to commit to, we want to always be connected to love, and especially unconditional love to God, to Jesus. However your faith presents itself, making that commitment, then I believe that they're on our side in that investigation, and they go with us and help us, and we get closer to them in that process.
Yep.
Does that answer your question?
It does, and I love the word. Well, the word picture that came to mind when you're talking there is almost of a guy. Maybe it's even a diver going into, deep sea diver going down, or somebody going off the side of a cliff, and you've got this hook on you. You got a rope back there. You just say, "Look, I'm going to do this, but you got my back. Make sure if I go too deep,
You pull me out.
you're going to pull me out of this here." Because otherwise, I guess you'll never get to explore. You never get to really find out things for yourself. But you've got that safety net almost of pulling you back out there. So.
And the thought of unconditional love really is the anchor. And it's almost coming full circle with how do you find that healing? How do you get to this place of trusting your intuition and turning up authentically? You can only do that on a foundation of unconditional love, where you're saying, I know there is stuff that goes on in life, there's brokenness around us, but I'm loved and accepted exactly as I am, and I can pass that on in the way that I deal with others. So that's a great place to be, and a great worth the work to get there, so that we can be freed up to turn up as the best version of ourselves in the way we relate to other people.
Yeah. And you're going to make mistakes. Like if you, in anything that we're talking about, we're going to make mistakes. There was some mistakes I made along the way. But we have an awesome God. We have an awesome, this earth is amazing too. Like it's such a support to us. This is a beautiful universe. Like the whole idea of life and what we get to choose in this life, it's just really deep. And it's okay to make some mistakes.
Yeah, and that's very freeing, especially for leaders. So I know we'll have a mix of people on listening in, some who are already in tune with their spirituality and willing to do the journey, some who are curious but really, standing on the outside looking in and saying, is this all outside my depth? How would you encourage people to just start the process of looking in to deal with limiting beliefs so that they can show up better and better in their relationships?
Yeah, I think it's like pay attention to your callings, and there's like wherever you are right now, there's someone that's just ahead of you in their growth path. And to be willing to see that person, it could be your neighbor, it could be a mentor that comes to you, it could be someone you hire as a coach, whoever, and just like choose to grow and choose to find those people that you're called to work with. And then I didn't, it's a growth path where at the beginning, if someone approached me like myself and said, oh, you need to do all this stuff, I would have been like, you're crazy, right? Like we have to just be responsive to where we are and to the people that we need at that time. I now work with my coach, my original coach. I'm helping him now,
Oh, wow.
because he's got all this stuff he's writing, and it's and all these things he's created over his life. But then he needs to really work into letting people help him get it out there, right? And so I'm working with him to help him do that. And so, yeah, we're all helping each other. I think that's really the point to me, is like connectedness, right? Like relationships. Why do we have relationships? Because we're all one community. I mean, the entire world, we're pretty much just one community. It's just that we need to learn how to connect within
Yeah.
that community and be acknowledging, or to acknowledge the gifts that others have, and understand that we don't have all the gifts, that we need to work together. And all of heaven, all of the energetic world, they're doing their job too. And we get to interface with everyone in a way that's going to move the community forward. I think that's a privilege.
Connectedness. I love the way
Exactly.
you kind of
That
brought
was
it
there.
full circle with that. How do we get better at showing up with our gifts and helping others show up with their gifts, so that together we're far more connected and move the community forward?
Yep. I mean,
Amazing.
there's so many points coming out here, but I'm conscious of time. As we move to wrap up, though, Kevin, any final thoughts that you wanted to share with the audience here in terms of what it takes to help people unlock their potential?
Yeah, I mean, we are designed to love completely, and we often come at things from the other perspective, like we're broken and etc. But all of us are designed to love ourselves, to love our neighbors, to love our kids, to love our spouse. Let's find the areas that we're blocking that potential together.
All about love.
Yes. And as I heard what you said, we're already designed to do it well. Find the things that are blocking it, unblock
Yes.
those, so that we can be who we're designed to be. Love that.
Yes.
So, Kevin, how can people get in touch with you if they want to continue the conversation one-on-one with you, or what resources are out there from you?
LinkedIn is probably the best way to reach me, but believecrew.com is a good way to start, and you'll see our socials from there.
Okay, so we can
Believe Crew.
put those in the show notes. Yep. That's all good.
And do you
Yes,
and
exactly.
Jamie see people individually, together? What's the process?
Yeah, we do everything one-on-one. We do some groups just to get people started, but each of us really have, like, that's been our own path, is one-on-one work.
Right.
And even our retreats, we're doing one-on-one work. Like, we're using the water, the environment, and the sand to sponsor quicker growth, but we're still one-on-one.
Got you.
Not 2-on-2, as I guess I had
Yes,
this question
yes.
in terms of working as a
Or
couple,
2-on-1.
working with a couple with another couple.
Yeah, we do work. That's been interesting. We've been experimenting recently with doing 2-on-1 too, like having both of us work with someone else, and we do it sometimes.
Yeah,
It's fun.
Great.
Great.
Yeah, wonderful. Well, thank you so much for your time and for your insights and for daring to go where few dare to go. And
thank you.
we wish you both every success in your business, certainly in the work that you're doing in helping people to unlock their full potential and turn up with their full intuition and authenticity. So thank you. Thanks for the conversation.
Thank you as well. Appreciate it.
And to our audience around the world, we say thank you for being with us yet again. Let's see who's in the hot seat next week.
Yes. Until next time. It's a wrap.
It's a wrap, and bye-bye.
We hope you enjoyed that episode. And if you did, and you want to hear more, the best thing to do is subscribe. Then you'll never miss an episode. There's a new one every Friday. You can stay connected with us on social media at The 4 Habits for updates, behind-the-scenes content, and to participate in discussions related to the show. We always love to hear from you. And of course, if you've enjoyed this podcast, please leave us a review on your preferred platform to allow us to reach more listeners and help people around the globe radically transform the way they do relationships, so they too can enjoy better harmony at home, thrive at work, and win at life.